Everybody, this is Tell Me in 10. Today, I'm joined by Paul Hudson, who is the Regional Superintendent for the Midlands region. And I'm just going to introduce him and ask him just to say a few things about himself before we ask him some, hopefully, probing and challenging questions. Over to you, Paul.
Well, yeah, thanks, Adam. It's lovely to be able to do this. I would look forward to being able to be with Living Springs at some point in the future. It is in the diary. Doesn't look very likely that I'm going to be there, but anyway, it's nice to connect this way. Yeah, thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Paul. I've been married 32 years. I've got 2 adult children now, and they're both in the ministry. And I live in Stourport-on-Severn, and I work in the North East and the Midlands region.
Excellent, thank you. So, Paul, we've got these questions. I sent them to you yesterday. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them. Hopefully, they won't catch you too far on the hop. But the first one is, Paul, could you just tell us, what was your journey to faith? Were you born into a church-going family, or did you come in afresh?
Yeah, my journey to faith was privileged within a Christian home, and so my journey to faith was. In comparison to my journey of faith, which has been a struggle, my journey to faith wasn't a struggle. But to the age of 8 years of age, I had a childhood salvation. But as I say, my journey of faith since then, well, that's not been so easy.
What have been the challenges in that journey to faith? Or journey of faith?
I think the journey of faith for any childhood salvation within a Christian home is whether you really want to hold on to your parents' faith, which you have been privileged to receive, or whether you want to carve out your own faith. And for that to happen, you need to be fully aware of your need of a savior. For you to be aware of your need for a savior means you need to be aware of, have a self-awareness of your sin and your brokenness. Yeah,
cool. And when you were growing up, was it a Pentecostal church you went to, or?
No. We're third generation Salvation Army.
Okay.
My parents were, and so it wasn't until we were aged 14 did we come into the Elam Pentecostal Church. Okay. When I was 14. Yeah.
Excellent. Cool. So, second question is, when did you realise that you were called to come into ministry?
I attended some kind of crusade, some kind of, I think it was a Reinhard Bonnke meeting in Birmingham. I got, it's around about I was 16 years of age, whether it was Birmingham or it was in some kind of conference, but I remember at 16 years of age responding to a call to serve. And then over the next 8 years, on a number of occasions, people either who were ministering in the church where I was, guest speakers, or people who were overseeing my life would confirm that they saw something of the hand of God in my life to move into a ministerial position. So it was a conviction, but it was also a confirmation from a few people.
Excellent. And what was the reaction of those around you when you publicly shared you were going to do that?
They would all say they all saw that that was what was going to happen.
Yeah. I remember mine. Not many people shared that view.
And we all got our unique, remarkable stories, and I do love hearing stories like yours.
Yeah. Excellent. And so just moving into maybe a little bit about the Bible, and do you have a favourite book of the Bible, and if so, why?
When you asked me that question, I felt almost a little bit guilty not having one.
No.
And I thought, should I make one up overnight? I don't have a favourite book of the Bible. No. Since the year 2000, I've systematically read and wrote something every day within the Bible. So I've read and written something about every chapter of the Bible,
Wow.
and now I'm going into smaller sections and passages. I love every part of it.
No, that's good. Yeah, yeah. That's some people do, some people don't. I don't. I love a bit of Amos, but that's just where
Ah,
I am. So
wow.
there we are. So could you tell us a little bit about what you have done in ministry, and then finishing what your current with what your current role looks like?
Yeah, I loved serving in church since the age of, well, 16 really. Prior to that, I was serving in the Salvation Army with the band and things. But
Hmm.
from the age of 16, I was serving in the church at the same time as just moving in a career. I had a career with Boots the Chemist,
Okay.
and I'd become the store trainer in Leeds, the branch at Leeds, which meant that I was training everybody up to the level of pharmacy. And so I really enjoyed that. It was a large staff, about 300, 350. And so the several years, I did a couple of different odd jobs and things, but then I got into my groove within Boots Chemist and the human resources department. And then I got called by God. I felt really strongly to go and prepare myself now
Mm.
for the ministry, to which I'd had this sense of calling since the age of 16, having served in the church during my jobs in areas of youth and children, etc. So we did 3 years in Bible college. We went as a married couple, and then we got placed from there into the Lake District for 4 years. We did a church plant it was called Church in the Barn, and it's because it met on a farm, and there was a cow shed that was renovated. We stayed there for 4 years, from 92 to 96, and then from 96 we went back to our home church, as it were. We got married there. We were, it wasn't our childhood church, but we got married there, and we went there to pastor there from 96 to 2013. We left a church around about 200 people. It was a great experience. We loved that church immensely. But the Lord opened up a door in 2013 to be the International Missions Director for Elam,
Yeah.
which I did for 5 years, to 2018. Loved that role, passionately loved it with all of my heart. And then in 2018, the Lord led me away from that into this present role as that I'm in right now.
Excellent, cool. So there were two things I picked up there. One, do you think that your experience in Boots in the secular world as a trainer has helped you in ministry? Do you think that
Oh yeah,
gave you some?
absolutely. Ministry is about people.
Yeah,
Life's about people, and so that those early years in Boots, even just working with customers, and because I started on the shop floor, that's what happened. I started as a Christmas temporary staff, and there was around about 350 members of staff, and there was 6 men. And it was quite an experience. And you just going to work every day, having a rhythm of life,
yeah,
dealing with people, dealing with the public, who are always right, and all those kind of experiences. Oh, they were the bedrock.
yeah. Excellent. And then you mentioned it in a few places. You felt led by God. You were led by. How did that manifest itself? How do you sense when God is leading you in a direction?
Afterwards, I wish, tongue in cheek, I wish I could, say that God speaks audibly,
Yeah,
and I walk with an incredible sense of knowing what God wants every single day of my life. I don't. A lot of it is working it out. A lot of it is having friends around you, accountability around you. A lot of it is taking some risks. I think the key is that if you've, I really think God calls you to Himself. That's the most important thing, and it's there where you have to learn sacrifice and surrender, and where you have to lay your life down daily. And if you do that, if every day the call is to Himself, to worship, to read the Word, to familiarize yourself with how God speaks, and to sacrifice your life and say, here I am, wholly available, it's not about me, then in that given day, there may be a moment when an opportunity comes your way, which might look really great. But in order to step into that and to take that, you have to let go of something that's equally so precious to you. And so I found myself every time stepping out in faith, taking a risk, but based upon a sacrificial heart with God, which comes out of that prayer place saying, God, today, whatever you want me to do, I'm ready to do it. And it's that walking in step with the Spirit, I think. But it's afterwards that you look, when you look back and say, yeah, God led me in that. Because during the time, it may not feel like you're being led. It might feel like you are on your own, and you may be even making the biggest mistake of your life, and you just hope and pray you're doing the right thing.
And I think you're, to me, that the word that comes to my mind as you were sharing there was intimacy with God, and you reading His Word and soaking yourself and understanding Him, and from that intimacy, hopefully you head the right way. So thank you for that. Outside of Jesus, who has influenced you the most in your ministry? Now's a good time to mention the General Superintendent, I'm just saying.
Pastor Adam Bound. I think I could list a whole bunch of people. And amongst those people, there would be a few that would have, would be in that category. But I won't mention their names, I'll just say what the category is. Because these are people not only in the UK that have spent time with me, but these are people right across the world. And it's the category of broken people, people who walk with a limp, people who are not perfect, people who have stories that are redeemed, but stories where even perhaps the church has given up on them, but Jesus didn't. And those are the people that inspire me and have influenced me the most. And I today, if I had a choice, where would I want to go and spend the day? Who I would want to spend the day with? It would be these kind of people. It's the one of my favorite books is the Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning. It's those kind of people. It's those that are maybe on the fringes of they don't get the world stage.
Thanks. And that walking with a limp, is that where maybe some ministry hurts have come in as well as life hurts?
So obviously I'm referring to the story of Jacob, and he wasn't perfect. He was a deceiver, and he wrestled with God, and he walked away. He walked away a changed man, and but he for the rest of his life he walked away with a limp. And how did you get that? It's a moment in my life, and I find those the most moving moments, most moving and most influential people are those people who have experienced that in their life.
Absolutely. So our next question is, outside of this COVID-19 bubble that we are living in and working through at the moment, what is the most challenging aspect of your role? What's the most challenging thing in your role as a regional superintendent?
The most challenging thing about my role are pastors.
Without pastors, it'd be perfect.
No, I didn't say that. No, because I've been one, and I am one, and I love that role,
Mm-hmm.
and it's challenging because I see what they go through, and I see the sacrifice. I mean, like, even for yourselves, you and Ruth, I remember at your induction, and I just remember getting really moved by the challenge of how you move geographically from Corby to here, and to Cannock, and I always get moved by that. I get moved by the fact that there is this sacrifice that pastors go through, and they get all kinds of stuff that they have to navigate through, and they have to deal with their own little demons of life, and they have to deal with that stuff. And so I find that most challenging, because a lot of it is spiritual, a lot of it is standing with them in prayer, just holding them, just encouraging them.
Yeah.
Say we can get this, we can get through this.
Yeah. And I think you've touched on this next question, but what is the most enjoyable thing that you do within your role?
Yeah, most enjoyable thing I do in my role is pastors.
Yeah. So yeah,
absolutely. They're the most challenging and the most enjoyable thing, and I just love it, and I love being with them, and I love encouraging them, and I love helping them. I love if I can just do a little thing just to help them, if I can just give them an encouraging word just to keep going, then that's the enjoyment.
Excellent. So if you could go back in time and to when you started out in ministry, what piece of advice would you give a younger Paul Hudson before he set off on this journey?
I would say slow down.
Slow down. Yeah.
But keep a good speed up as well.
Okay.
I suppose I would say this. I suppose I would say work on your rhythm of your life. Get out of rhythm, and all kinds of things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
As as I've experienced, rhythm of life is something I've been trying to work on all my life.
Yeah.
And I'm very. It's very easy to criticize me because everybody knows, like, I'm just going like 100 miles an hour all the time, and I don't hide that, but I am working on it. I'm trying to go at a snail pace at times, but I think yeah, I would speak to a younger Paul Hudson and say, look, if you're going to sustain yourself, find your rhythm. I think it's only been the grace of God that I'm nearly 30 years on, and I'm still here, because certainly that rhythm has been broken often, but I'm still passionately working at it, trying to get a good rhythm of life. I would think also the other thing would be, I think maybe I've learnt this, to enjoy every conversation you have. Okay. I suppose that's what I mean by slowing down. Yeah. I don't see people might hear that and think slowing down, or got to sit in my chair and watch the telly. I don't mean that. I mean slowing down moments. Yeah. Slowing down to appreciate a sunset, to appreciate a conversation, to just to pause long enough just to be thankful for what you are experiencing there and then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the words that came to me were being present when you're present. It is, you know, because we can. My wife will say you're listening, but you're not listening, and so it's so that rhythm of life that you were talking about, is that your spiritual disciplines as well as your work habits, or is that every aspect of your life, do you think?
I think it's more to do with my work habits. As a young child, my mom, who's an intercessor, drilled into me. Should have this line: "Have you had your everyday with Jesus?" Selwyn Hughes had this Everyday with Jesus booklet, and have you had your everyday with Jesus? It's like, you know, put the fear of God into me, and I think that's really created a really healthy spiritual discipline. So there's not a day that goes by that I'm not into my spiritual disciplines. I'm really highly disciplined in that. But when it comes to work, not so.
Okay.
So, you know, I can work and work and work and work, and I need to get the rhythm. And I'm trying to do things too fast. I need to slow that down. And yeah, so you know, that's the real me.
Cool, excellent, thank you. So moving on to this current situation, it'd be remiss not to ask you at this time, what opportunities and challenges do you see for the local church in this time of COVID-19?
Yeah, I think the challenges are here already and are going to emerge very soon, is the impact that this lockdown and isolation is having on people's lives. So this morning I watched the news this morning, just a little section, and they were interviewing a family that had a celebrity family who had lost their loved one, and because of the current situation, because of the virus, and of course they weren't able to be with, you know, their loved one, and also their funeral's going to be a somber affair because of all the restrictions, and I think that has a major impact upon their lives. And I obviously prior to this situation, people were dying all the time. Grief was there all the time, but it seems that grief has risen publicly to the surface, so that actually it's like a window's been opened, and everybody now is quite familiar with grief, in talking about it, and maybe more have been affected by it for sure. But I think that presents a challenge, but it presents an opportunity. I think mental health is going to be a challenge, but it's going to present an opportunity. On the BBC News app, I was reading this morning that there's already an increase of 25% of domestic abuse being reported, because people are locked into their families. There's no release, there's no getting out and getting away from it. And so I think the local church are going to be given lots of opportunity to meet these challenges, plus the financial economical challenge that this will bring upon people's lives.
Definitely challenging times, but I do think you're right, the opportunities are there for us as well to reach people and to be the gospel, perhaps without the words at the moment, is going to be one of the things that we're there for. Do you think, final question, do you think that when this is all over, we will go back to doing church the same way, the way we did pre this situation?
Well, I hope not. The church in the UK was in decline, and has been declining over the last decade. I think this gives us an opportunity to seriously look at what we are doing. I do think it'll bring it gives an opportunity. Whether Christians will take it, I don't know. But it gives us an opportunity to have a greater appreciation of each other. The church has been guilty of biting each other, devouring one another. They did it in Paul's churches, in the New Testament, and they're still doing it in 2020. And when coming out of this lockdown, that should stop.
Yeah.
Because I think we need to create a new church rule that if we find anybody else devouring one another, we put them back in lockdown. And I think so. Maybe an appreciation of one another. I think a firmer commitment to the gospel, and going back to the previous question, realizing that we've got this great opportunity, but we need to commit ourselves even more to actually that this is not about us coming together to have our nice times, but this is about us coming together to be equipped to go into the world that God has called us into, with a firmer commitment to be an expression of Jesus' body, Christ's body on earth, and the gospel of that. And I think also it will make us realize that buildings are wonderful things, but they're not the most important thing.
Yeah.
And we've said it for all our life, but we can rely less on them and we can do a lot of church now without them, and we're proving that to be so. And so I think that we will appreciate that, but maybe not have a reliance as much upon that.
Yeah. And I think that's the power that the internet, Zoom, and all of these things give us to reach into people's lives. Doesn't make up for not being able to be there physically, but I agree. I think there'll be a paradigm shift at the end of this. Paul, thank you so much for being. You are the first person on Tell Me in 10, and so when we share this, we'll see what happens, if people will be brave enough to come on afterwards. But thank you so much, and God bless.
God bless you too. Thank you so much.
Let me just stop the recording.